Hi, welcome to a new series of Taoism, Chronicles of Tao by Deng Ming Dao, one of my favourite authors of this extraordinary book, which I've been reading again and again for the last 15 years. So I've probably only read it about 3 or 4 times its entire length, but I've always dipped into it because it is such a fascinating book and about fascinating characters, men and women of power in old China. Well, it's not really that old. We're only talking as far back as about 1930 because it's a true story of the secret life of a Taoist master. So I'm going to be reading some of my favourite bits out of the book and maybe offering some interpretations as to what these magicians, sorcerers, wizards, martial artists, lords and masters are talking about. Here's a typical quote from the beginning of the book, the Tai Shan Festival. Elders, uncles, aunts and children, I have spent 50 years as a magician. I've known immortals and priests, sorcerers and recluses. I have learned obscure secrets, but none so amazing as mesmerism. And another. It's hard to choose which ones because there's so many great paragraphs and it's written in a very poetic fashion as well. No traditional Chinese ever built a home without a geomancer to calculate the complicated cross-influences of location and orientation in relation to the cosmic forces of wind, water, earth, and destiny. Each builder endeavoured to integrate his family harmoniously with the universe, and by following the flow of natural forces, to preserve his clan and make it prosperous. So you get an idea of how some of the ancient Taoists fashioned their lives, how they were connected with elemental forces that allowed them to influence the flow of the universe or the Tao. That was one such family or clan. Guan Juyin had frowned on Wan Hong's decision to enter the military. By Chinese standards, to be a martial artist and to be a soldier were not necessarily comparable. A martial artist was not only concerned with the self-perfection of his physical skill, but was also concerned with justice, and like a medieval European knight errant, championed the causes of the weak, poor, and defenceless. His only concern was to attain the highest possible level in the art, to fight for morality, to achieve the heroic, but a soldier did not act in this standard. He was concerned not with morality, but with slaughter. He did not seek opponents qualified to compete with him, but indiscriminately destroyed all who opposed him. He was not an individual fighting for his honourable principle, but a tool to be manipulated by powerful commanders. A soldier to Guan Juyin was a mercenary, a dupe, a hack, a butcher. Now, it's very interesting and germane that I should read such a paragraph today. It's come as a welcome sigh of relief after awaken today almost slightly psychologically traumatized by some of the images I had seen coming from the Vietnam War documentary on BBC4 last night. And it was so fascinating and such a subject of interest to me that I stayed up till midnight watching it. And I don't know if any of these images sort of gathered root in my unconscious, which caused me to have unpleasant dreams. I don't remember them being unpleasant or of a warlike nature at all. In fact, the content of them was significantly different. But nonetheless, I woke up in a state that could be described as ill-equipped for the day ahead, which was unusual for me. But anyway, I slept a bit and recovered enough energy to write in the same manner and of the same duration and quality that I would normally expect of myself during the course of an ordinary day. At the same time, I was able to practice qigong effectively and gather sufficient energy that I felt emboldened and indeed grateful for having this life, the chance to fulfill my own original destiny. And so, on that subject, whilst thinking about developing my own martial arts system, and now having developed my own qigong system after 20 or odd years of practice, that I felt the need to go out on my own on this. Felt the need not to read so much as I had done before, as had been my habit in the past, to see how many books of different subjects I could acquire the knowledge. I was hungry for knowledge and facts and from all different kinds of disciplines. But that was my approach for years, because the scholar warrior approach is to become skillful and proficient in a number of areas, with the ultimate aim being a harmonious balance and flow in all of the domains. It's an integral approach to life. So, and the Taoists put great emphasis on health and energy cultivation practices, such as qigong and various forms of kung fu and other martial arts and even dances. So, each of the characters is quite a dazzling individual himself, herself, of a very individualistic nature, because the Taoists were very much not part of the mainstream. They were fringe dwellers, outsiders, mavericks of the spiritual world, in a sense, because they didn't follow any particular school or any particular teacher for the duration of their lives. They moved from one to another and often spent a great deal of time travelling on the roads, learning from the impressions of life, absorbing the impressions of non-ordinary experience. So, Sai Hoon, who is the protagonist of this story, met his teacher, his main teacher, in the monastery upon a famous mountain in China. It was a famous Taoist monastery, and it was run by the abbot or the Grand Master, who was supremely skilled in martial arts and meditation, magic, divination, and had a wealth of professional knowledge on subjects as diverse as geomancy, astrology, geography, history, mathematics, and such subjects that would be considered part of the domain of one's academic education in the West, except it encompassed a far wider scope. And on this note, in the chapter The Grand Mountains, it says, aside from teaching, most advanced practitioners on Huashan, that was the name, pursued their own research and practices. Taoism was limitless, a lifelong pursuit of higher and higher knowledge. Some Taoists devoted themselves to herbalism, medicine, poetry, calligraphy, or music. Others were spiritual mediums, oracles, diviners. Still others pursued internal alchemy on the quest for immortality. And there were also men on Huashan who were solely hermits and recluses. Genuine renunciates, some of whom were already considered immortal, they rarely associated with anyone. Huashan's temples were all united under the philosophy of renunciation and asceticism. Other sects of Taoism were known for other specialities. The single-minded pursuit of spiritual knowledge and self-perfection characterized Huashan. So, Deng Ming Dao's intention is to show the broad scope and depth of Taoism. It not only concerns renunciates, ascetics, and men who have left traditional ways of life, like in Hinduism, where they have the householder who gives up his wife, family, and personal possessions to become a homeless wanderer or sadhu. That tradition is very strong in the East, the ascetic tradition. It's found in Buddhism also, and in Christianity. But it's very much associated with the monastic culture of ancient China. But it's not, even as this book shows, it's not the only method of attaining higher states of consciousness or non-ordinary states of consciousness. Because primarily this book is about inner development, about developing the supernormal capabilities of man, the supernatural abilities of acting, creativity, and magical power, and so on. So, the emphasis in Taoism was for one individual to know as much as possible, and being aware of the fact that one cannot know everything, one can certainly know more than most people know. And by acquisition of that knowledge, they were able to further their quest for such things as higher knowledge, divinity, supernatural powers, insights, the attainment of enlightenment, and so on. So it's a very unorthodox way of, unorthodox in the sense that it doesn't only encompass monastic life and the renunciate via negativa, but it also explores other possibilities of worldly existence and combining worldly existence with the cornerstone of any spiritual practice, meditation, emphasizing. And I want to say something about meditation because it's so central to Taoism, and if I can find it in time, so that this video doesn't drag on too long, then because I want to dish this out in thimblefuls. But certainly learning from the natural world, from animals, from plants, from trees, from nature, was a crucial aspect of Taoism. So this book is really central in its descriptions of the practices of the ancient Taoists, and that these ancient practices were, until at least the time of the Chinese Revolution in 1949, certainly part of this central religious and physical practices of non-conformists, iconoclasts, people dwelling on the fringe of society. There's always this element of being outside of society, being outside the norm, living in rural areas or in isolated communities. With the Taoist ideal is in fact the lone hermit, the wizard on the mountain, the reclusive monk, like some of the stories that are so popular in Zen. Now, Zen, interestingly, comes from Chan Buddhism, which originated in China and has its roots in Taoism. Because you must remember that the Tao Te Ching, one of the first books of Taoism, was written by Lao Tzu, who lived round about the same time as Gautama Buddha, who was previously a prince of the warrior class and became the Buddha, the awakened one. So, yes, the immortals, or these hermits, were unique among the Taoist recluses, were men who sought immortality through internal alchemy. These hermits, like the legendary Ge Hong or Ko Hung, withdrew from the world in their quest for alchemical mixtures of gold and cinnabar, mercury and lead, that would grant them immortality and ascension into heaven. Taoists on Huashan still engaged in that quest, but unlike many of their predecessors, they had abandoned poisonous metallics in favour of Qigong, herbs, and meditation. So I'll leave it on. Well, I'll just finish this as I'm wont to do, to be moreish in such esoteric matters, to go into in the next paragraph. He says, some of the masters of Huashan were already addressed as immortal. These were highly regarded individuals, ageless in appearance. Their titles meant realized persons, signifying that the masters had fulfilled, as a minimum requirement, the completion of internal alchemy for the sake of longevity, liberation from the cycle of transmigration, enlightened perception of the nature of life, astral travel, and the total memorization of the hundreds of volumes comprising the Taoist canon. So accomplished were the immortals that they were exempt even from the Grand Master's authority. He knew they were above him in their achievements. So among us are anonymous men and women who have achieved unimaginable things in their inner development and who perhaps have access to unimaginable knowledge and abilities. And that's what makes this secret path so endearing to me. So I'm quite excited now about going into my practice of meditation in the inner silence to access some of this amazing knowledge. So, until the next time.